Have you ever felt like pursuing one passion meant abandoning another? Like every step forward meant leaving a part of yourself behind? That feeling of tension, of fragmentation, defines so much of my early life. We are taught to simplify ourselves for the world, pick a side, choose a label, shrink to fit. As Chimamanda Adichie challenges, the problem with stereotypes is not that they are untrue, but they are incomplete. They make one story become the only story. A whopping 72% of people who didn't achieve their dream job say they regret it in a 2023 Resume Lab survey. How many of these people sacrificed their dreams because they thought they were asking for too much? And when it comes to our identities, we're often told to choose just one. As N.H. Kleinbaum wrote in Dead Poets Society, we read and write poetry because we are members of the human race filled with passion. And medicine, law, business, engineering, these are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for. And yet, we are told that STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and the arts, are like oil and water. That you're either a numbers person or a creative, logical or imaginative. But what if that divide was never real? The truth is we limit ourselves when we force a choice between science and creativity. And resilience? It isn't just about pushing through hardship. It's about breaking the limits we place on ourselves. That's the essence of the blue nose spirit, a Nova Scotian symbol of innovation and courage. It means daring to be multifaceted and thriving because of it. My name is Danella Calina, and this is my story of embracing both the brain and the heart as essential parts of who I am, of refusing to choose and discovering something bigger because of it. Now, I don't remember the first time I performed, because if we're being honest, I think I've always been on the stage. As a kid, I helped my dad with our family's event hosting business, Inch Events. As his co-host, we'd split the guests into teams and battle it out over who could win the games. Our banter, scripted in real time. And our audience was just as fired up as we were. Oh, I spent so many hours on the game Dance Central that eventually, I became the dancer. I danced at talent shows, community events, and suddenly, dancing became my thing. And if no one else clapped for me, I clapped anyway. Because when you're little, your passion doesn't ask for permission. It just shows up. I was raised in Singapore, a city of ambition, culture, and expectations. So many expectations. The beautiful skyline and lush greenery came with a price, a fiercely competitive education system. It was a double-edged sword, blossoming in excellence, but often rooted in pressure. Singaporean 15-year-olds scored nearly 80 points higher than the international average in science, according to the OECD's PISA 2022 report. But behind the dazzling scores, a 2023 study by Chodaveria et al. Found that over 16% of Singaporean youth showed signs of depression or anxiety, some missing over 190 hours of school per year because of mental health struggles. At around just 10 years old, I was waking up at 5:30 a.m. for school, coming home at 5:30 p.m. from mandatory extracurriculars, and still had homework waiting. That was normal. It was excellence without rest. But performing let me make room for magic. For as long as I can remember, my greatest joy came from the stage. I lived for the spotlight, the adrenaline before the curtains opened, the roar of applause, the spell-binding moment of becoming someone entirely different. Normal Danella had limits. She got nervous and worried about what people thought of her. She was imperfect, messy, and so loudly human. But stage Danella? Oh, she could do anything. She could command a crowd. Or she could be the heroine in a fairy tale. Once, my face got drawn on with black marker for a performance, and I totally forgot to wash it off after. Once the play was over, guess who I ran into? Yup, my elementary school crush. And me, forgetting I had the exaggerated stage makeup on, smiled at him and said, "Hi." He blinked. What's that on your face?" And so I did what any flustered preteen would. I laughed it off, ran away to the nearest washroom, and wrote about it in my diary, cheeks flushed red. But even in the embarrassing moments, the possibilities were endless when I performed. So I joined all sorts of contests, started public speaking, doing anything to let me feel that limitless again. And that's what my reputation was built on. Danella Calina, the performer. When my family moved to Canada, I feared I might lose that part of myself. But instead, I found new stages, competitive dance, and later, musical theater. In my senior year, I was cast as the title lead in my high school's production of Matilda the Musical. The role of Matilda felt perfect, the story of a young girl navigating change, just as I was about to face my biggest one yet. I also wrote my own musical for my senior drama project called Petaled Lungs while I was in rehearsals for my second musical at Neptune Theater. Needless to say, my high school years were full of performances. And while portraying Matilda, I was also pondering upon the dreaded question I had been pushing away for years. What's next? The stage had been my home, my identity. But was I going to make it my full-time profession? The idea of acting school sounded thrilling, but something kept me from fully committing to the thought. I couldn't explain it at the time, but it felt like there was another part of me I desperately needed to listen to first. There's a side of me that many people may not know. Rewind to my preteen years, and you'll find a little girl who stayed up late watching science videos, spent hours on the coding website Scratch, and loved reading encyclopedias, just for fun. I was driven by this insatiable thirst for knowledge, and I took so much pride in that, I even made my social media usernames Danella the Nerd. It's different now, don't worry. I made that my new identity, and I relished being seen as the smart one or the nerdy one in my friend groups. It made me feel a deeper sense of purpose, like I could actually do more than just performing. But somewhere along the way, I learned that smart girls do science and creative girls do art. So I picked a lane because I thought that was my only choice. Coming back to high school, something changed within me. Performing sparked a new kind of curiosity. Why did I feel such deep emotion when acting? Why did singing a sad song make me cry real tears? I started wondering, what's going on in the brain when we feel, when we pretend? When does imagination stop and reality start? Those questions led me to neuroscience. It wasn't a leap from art to science. It was a reunion of present me and past me. It felt like coming home to the parts of myself I had shut away for years, convinced I couldn't be both. And that's when the tension between the two parts of me, the one who created and the one who craved to understand, became impossible to ignore. When I said I wanted to study the brain, I was met with confusion. All I heard was, "Wait, aren't you the theater girl? Are you sure? You do great in acting school. All that talent, don't let it go to waste." Their surprise wasn't cruel, just familiar. We've been taught that to be excellent, we must be just one thing. There was a time where performing wasn't just something I did, it was all I thought I could be. And even now, I miss her. When I watch my little sister perform or see old theater friends still on that path, a part of me aches. There's a ghost of the girl who once believed that applause was the measure of her worth. And letting go of her felt like a loss, like I was mourning a version of myself that could have been, and grieving the what-ifs. But I've come to understand, I didn't leave her behind. I carry her with me. She's in every story I tell, every presentation I give. She's there when I bring art into science in the way I use my voice, not just to sing, but to speak scientific truth. Both of them made me who I am today. And now, I don't have to choose between them. STEM and the arts aren't opposites. They're reflections of the same human drive, to make sense of the world around us. Think about it. What is a biology textbook without informative diagrams? Like, how am I supposed to know where the mitochondria is? Or what is a video game without graphic design? I have to know what the enemies look like so I can take them down. And of course, what is innovation without imagination first? Oil and water? No. More like melody and rhythm. Different roles, but written for the same song. Real resilience isn't forcing yourself to stay in one role even when your heart is screaming at you to leave. It's the courage to integrate, to say, I'm allowed to be multifaceted and actually live like it. STEM and the arts don't just complement one another, they depend on each other. Science explains the mechanism, but art explains the meaning. Science uncovers how the heart beats. Art explores why it breaks. And you know what? Maybe that's what success really is. Wholeness. Success isn't clean or symmetrical. It's like stained glass, made of all the jagged fragments of yourself you once tried to hide. But when you have the courage to bring them into the light together, oh, they don't just reflect one color, they create a rainbow you could have never found with just one piece. When we embrace the intersection between STEM and the arts, we don't dilute our passions, we deepen them. And in doing so, we touch ideas that neither discipline could reach alone. So where does that leave me now? I never left the stage, clearly. I simply changed where the spotlight shines. I'm a neuroscience student one day, a performer and creator the next. Double life. I started the STEM Arts Fusion Society at Dalhousie University with the mission of bridging STEM and art, not just to prove it's possible, but to show others they belong in both. You don't have to be a master artist to create or a renowned scientist to do science. I played a double role in Nova Scotia's first original Filipino musical and was even featured on the news for it, all while in the thick of midterm season. Trust me, that balance is possible. Online, I create content sharing how I nourish both sides of myself. My brain with academics, my heart with self-expression, especially through fashion. I hope that's obvious. To me, that's what success looks like, not limiting yourself to one archetype, but embracing the wholeness of who you are. I'm still writing my fairy tale, but in this chapter, the heroine finally chooses herself. You were never meant to define yourself as solely a science person or an arts person, but to embrace both parts of you, the thinker and the feeler. We need to stop forcing people into rigid categories and start building a world that celebrates being multifaceted, where science and art aren't opposites, but allies. This is for the kid who draws faces in the margin of their homework, the student who dances and codes, the adult still wondering if they chose wrong. I see you. And I promise you are not asking for too much. You are made of both brain and heart. And when you lead with both, you redefine what is possible. So let me ask you this. What parts of yourself have you been told to choose between? And how might your story, or even the world, change if you embraced every part of who you are unapologetically? Thank you.